Hi, I'm Maya. And at my sister's Yale graduation, my parents stood before hundreds of people and disowned me publicly. No warning, no explanation, just proud smiles for her and cold silence for me. They removed my name from the program, from the invitations, from their definition of family. But what they didn't know was that I had already discovered their darkest secret: stolen inheritance, forged signatures, and a beach house sold behind my back. When the truth finally came out, they weren't the ones doing the exposing. I was. And their screams turned to desperate pleas when they realized what they'd lost. Before we dive in, where are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. I arrived at Yale's old campus 30 minutes early, not because I was excited, but because I needed to confirm what my gut already knew. The morning sun painted the historic buildings in shades of gold and amber, while families bustled around me, clutching bouquets and gift bags. I held nothing except the invitation I'd received, forwarded by my cousin, not sent directly. My parents stood near the reserved seating area like royalty holding court. My mother, Victoria Chen, wore an ivory suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her smile was practiced professional, the one she'd perfected during 20 years of charity galas. My father, Richard Chen, checked his phone obsessively, his Yale class ring catching the light as he scrolled. Between them stood my sister Sophia, radiant in her cap and gown, her honor society cords draped perfectly. Yale Law's newest graduate, following in Dad's footsteps exactly as planned. They didn't notice me at first. When they did, my mother's gaze swept over me like I was a stranger who'd wandered too close to their circle. "Oh, Maya," she said, her tone flat as old champagne. "You made it." "I got the invitation," I replied, keeping my voice steady. She laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Someone must have forwarded it. The RSVP list was quite specific this year." My father didn't even look up from his phone. Sophia opened her arms for a hug, and I leaned in out of habit more than affection. "You look great," I told her. "Thanks," she murmured, but her eyes were already darting toward our mother, calculating how much warmth was acceptable to show. I found the seating chart near the entrance arch. The Chen family was printed in elegant script. Below it, Richard, Victoria, Sophia, plus 2 guests. My name wasn't there. A volunteer handed me a name badge, plain white, no family designation, just guest in generic font. I stared at it for a long moment. 28 years of being their daughter, and I'd been reduced to an anonymous attendee at my own sister's graduation. I should have left. Any person with self-respect would have. Instead, I clipped the badge to my blazer and walked toward the ceremony tent, feeling like a ghost haunting her own life. The ceremony began at exactly 11. Speakers came and went, professors praising academic excellence, trustees discussing bright futures. I sat in the general admission section, wedged between a sleeping grandfather and a mother wrestling with twins. Then my father stood and approached the podium. He adjusted his tie, cleared his throat, and smiled with the confidence of a man who'd never been told no. "Today, we celebrate not just my daughter Sophia's achievements, but the culmination of generations of Chen family excellence." Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked. Sophia looked down modestly. "However," he continued, his voice taking on a harder edge, "this moment also marks a necessary evolution for our family. We've made the difficult decision to formally distance ourselves from those who don't align with our values and vision. This includes my younger daughter, Maya." The silence that followed was deafening. No gasps, no protests, just the uncomfortable rustle of programs and clearing throats. I sat frozen, my hands gripping my knees, hyper-aware of every nerve in my body. "Did he just—" someone whispered behind me. "At a graduation," another voice hissed. I forced myself to remain still, to not react, to not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. The speech continued something about investments, legacy, pruning dead branches from the family tree. The words blurred together. When I finally stood and walked out of the tent, I did it quietly, mechanically. Like this was normal. Like being publicly disowned was just another Tuesday. Later at the reception, I looked for my seat at the Chen family table. There wasn't one. Sophia's name card was there along with our Aunt Grace, and even Sophia's college roommate. But not mine. An ivory card sat at the center of the table. I opened it. Congratulations to our daughter Sophia. With all our love, Mom and Dad. Our daughter. Singular. Maya. A voice made me turn. It was Jennifer Liu, someone I'd known since middle school. I didn't think you were coming. Your mom told everyone this was immediate family only. I looked down at my nameless badge and felt something inside me shift. Not break, just tilt toward a new understanding. Guess I didn't get the memo, I said quietly. I picked up a glass of champagne from a passing tray and walked toward the exit. As I left, I heard my mother's laughter echoing across the lawn, bright and careless. They'd erased me. Now it was time to show them exactly what they'd lost. I didn't go straight home after the reception. Instead, I wandered through New Haven streets, past coffee shops filled with celebrating families, past restaurants where graduates laughed with pride. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows, and I let the city carry me until exhaustion finally drove me back to my apartment in Hamden. I climbed the stairs, slowly kicked off my heels, and stood in my living room's silence. The quiet wrapped around me like an old friend, familiar if not comforting. My eyes caught the graduation program on my kitchen counter. It had fallen open to a page featuring photos from the ceremony. There was my family, Richard, Victoria, and Sophia, all three glowing with achievement. The caption read, "The Chen family celebrates another milestone." No trace of me. Not even a shadow in the background. I pulled out my old high school yearbook, the one from Sophia's graduation 10 years ago. My mother had told me not to attend that day either. "It's not your moment, Maya. Don't make it about you." I found the family tribute page, one of those paid advertisements parents bought. "To our daughter who makes us proud every day. Love, Mom and Dad." The photo showed them on our front porch, all three smiling. I remembered that photo. I'd been standing right beside Sophia wearing the yellow dress Mom had picked out. She'd yelled at me for sitting down and wrinkling it. But in this version, I was gone. Cropped out so cleanly you'd never know I existed. The next morning came too soon. I dragged myself to work at the Hartford Foundation where I managed donor relations. No one mentioned the graduation, why would they? The Chens had always been masters at image control. "Hey," my colleague Rachel said, stopping by my desk. "Saw some pics from Yale on Instagram. Your sister looked amazing in that white dress." "She always does," I replied, taking a sip of lukewarm coffee. "So mysterious," Rachel laughed. "Always in the background, never in the spotlight." If only she knew it wasn't by choice. I made it through the day on autopilot, but that night something made me dig deeper. Maybe it was anger, maybe curiosity, or maybe just the need to understand how long this erasure had been planned. I still had access to the Family Foundation's shared drive, a leftover from when I'd helped with their accounting during college. They'd never revoked it. Typical of them to forget the technical details while focusing on the performance. I clicked through folders aimlessly, at first tax documents, donor lists, board meeting minutes. Then something caught my eye, a folder labeled Asset Restructuring, Q2 Update. Inside was a PDF, Seaside Property Transfer, Final Authorization. My name was on it. My full legal name typed above a signature that looked almost like mine. Almost. The M was wrong, the Y too narrow. It was close enough to fool someone who didn't look carefully, but I knew my own signature. I pulled out an old lease agreement and compared them side by side. Not even close. and the notary public who'd authorized it, Sophia's best friend from law school, Amanda Park. My hands shook as the truth crystallized. This wasn't just emotional abandonment. This was theft. The beach house in Gloucester, the one Grandma Chen had specifically left to me in her will. The one where I'd spent summers painting the deck and fixing shutters. They'd forged my signature to steal it. I called the only family member who'd ever shown me kindness, Aunt May, my mother's sister. "Maya, sweetheart," she answered on the third ring. "Are you okay?" "Not really," I admitted, my voice cracking. "I found documents. The Gloucester house, they transferred it out of my name. But that's not my signature, Aunt May." The silence stretched long enough that I checked if the call had dropped. "Oh, Maya," she finally whispered. "I wondered when you'd find out." "You knew. Your mother said it was just paperwork cleaning up the estate. I should have said something, but..." She trailed off. "You know how Victoria gets." Yes, I knew. Victoria Chen didn't make requests, she made decisions, and everyone else fell in line. "I'm tired of it," I said. "I'm tired of being erased." "I know, baby. I know." By dawn, I'd pulled everything together. Property records, forged signatures, transfer documents. I'd also found something else. The house had been sold 6 weeks ago. The buyer, Sophia's new investment firm, Legacy Ventures. Their website tagline read, "Building tomorrow on yesterday's foundation." They'd used my inheritance to fund her business. My grandmother's gift to me had become another jewel in Sophia's crown. I made myself a strong cup of coffee and opened my laptop again. This time, I wasn't looking for evidence. I was building a case. Because some ghosts don't stay quiet. Some come back to haunt. The rain started just after midnight, drumming against my windows like impatient fingers. I'd been up for hours, surrounded by printouts and legal documents, my laptop screen casting blue shadows across the room. Each new discovery felt like peeling back layers of a lie I'd been living in. The Gloucester house was just the beginning. Once I started looking, the pattern became sickeningly clear. The family trust Grandma Chen had set up, I was supposed to receive distributions starting at 25. I was 28 now. 3 years of payments mysteriously absent. I found the amended trust documents dated just 2 months after Grandma's funeral. My name had been replaced with surviving heirs as designated by the trustees. The trustees, Richard and Victoria Chen, they'd written me out of everything while I was still grieving. My phone buzzed. Another text from an unknown number, the 5th this week. I'd been getting them since the graduation. This one read, "Some stones are better left unturned. Think of your future." I deleted it and went back to work. By morning, I'd compiled everything into organized folders. Forged signatures, amended documents, property transfers, even email chains I'd found discussing the Maya situation. One email from my mother stood out. "We need to be strategic about her access to information. She's always been too observant for her own good." I laughed bitterly. Too observant. As if noticing their lies was a character flaw. At work, I went through the motions, but my mind was elsewhere. During lunch, I walked to a small cafe and made a call I'd been dreading. "Warner Chung and Associates," the receptionist answered. "I need to speak with Patricia Chung about a potential fraud case," I said. "It involves forged signatures and stolen inheritance." The appointment was set for that afternoon. Patricia Chung's office was nothing like the intimidating law firms in movies. It was warm, filled with plants and photos of her family. She listened as I laid out everything, occasionally taking notes, her expression growing more serious with each document I produced. "This is extensive," she said finally. "And the notary who authenticated these signatures, she's connected to your family, my sister's best friend from law school." Patricia nodded slowly. "That's a serious breach of ethics. If we can prove she knew the signatures were forged." "Can we?" I asked. "With this evidence, I'd say we have a strong case. But Maya, I need you to understand, pursuing this will burn bridges. Your family will likely respond aggressively. I thought of the graduation of being erased from photos of years of being told I didn't fit their image. Those bridges are already ash, I said quietly. That evening, I went to the New Haven Public Library and pulled up property records for every asset my grandmother had owned. The rabbit hole went deeper than I'd imagined. The beach house in Cape Cod that was supposed to be held in trust for all grandchildren sold. The investment account earmarked for education expenses drained. Every transaction had the same pattern: my signature forged, Sophia's friend, as notary funds redirected to either my parents' accounts or Sophia's new firm. They hadn't just stolen from me, they'd systematically erased my financial existence while I was too trusting to notice. A librarian approached as I was printing documents. "Working on something important?" she asked kindly. "Just some family history," I replied. She smiled. "Those can be the most important stories to uncover." If only she knew. Back home, I found a FedEx envelope at my door. No return address. Inside was a single photo: me at age 16, standing with my grandmother at the Gloucester house. On the back, someone had written, "She wanted you to have it all. Don't let them win." A friend. I turned the photo over and over, studying it. Who had sent this? Who else knew? My phone rang. Aunt May. "Maya, I've been thinking," she said without preamble. "There's something else you should know. Your grandmother, she recorded a video will. Not the official one, but a personal message. She gave me a copy, told me to keep it safe." My heart stopped. "Do you still have it?" "In my safety deposit box. I never watched it." She said it was private. But maybe it's time. We arranged to meet that weekend. As I hung up, I looked at the photo again. My grandmother's arm around me, both of us smiling at the camera. She'd loved me. Whatever my parents had rewritten, they couldn't change that. The investigation was becoming something more than just uncovering fraud. It was reclaiming my history piece by piece, and I was just getting started. I hadn't planned to go nuclear. Not at first. But when I opened my laptop Tuesday morning to find my inbox flooded with messages, I knew they'd forced my hand. The Hartford Foundation had sent a formal letter. "After careful consideration, we've decided to eliminate your position effective immediately." No explanation, no severance discussion. Just a cold termination after 5 years of perfect reviews. Then came the emails from colleagues, all variations of the same theme. "Heard about your family situation. So sorry. Your mother called the board yesterday." Victoria had made her move. If I wouldn't disappear quietly, she'd erase me professionally. I sat at my kitchen table, still in my pajamas, staring at the termination letter. Rain streaked down the windows, matching my mood. Then I noticed something else. A LinkedIn notification. 3 board members from the foundation had viewed my profile in the last hour. My phone buzzed. "Rachel, what happened?" "They're saying you embezzled funds." I almost threw the phone across the room. Embezzlement. They were actually trying to frame me for theft while sitting on my stolen inheritance. That's when I decided if they wanted to play with fire, I'd bring the gasoline. I spent the day organizing everything: the forged documents, the property transfers, the email chains. But I also pulled something else: recordings. Legal in Connecticut, I'd been recording conversations for months, ever since I'd started suspecting something was wrong. One recording stood out: a foundation board meeting I'd attended to present donor reports. My mother's voice clear as day. "We only showcase Sophia in our materials. Maya doesn't photograph well with our vision." Followed by my father's chuckle. "Better keep her away from the financial documents. She reads everything." By evening, I'd compiled it all into a comprehensive file. But I didn't send it to lawyers or authorities. Not yet. Instead, I sent it to Christine Walsh. Christine ran Nonprofit Truth, a watchdog blog that had exposed dozens of charity scandals. We'd met at a conference 2 years ago, and she'd given me her card saying, If you ever see something wrong, call me. This qualified. Her response came within an hour. This is explosive. Can we verify independently? I sent her Patricia Chung's contact information. My lawyer can confirm everything. The story broke Thursday morning. Prominent charity family accused of fraud. Whistleblower exposes forged documents and stolen inheritance. Christine hadn't named me directly, but she hadn't needed to. The details were specific enough that anyone familiar with the Chens would connect the dots. By lunch, the story had been picked up by two national nonprofit watchdogs. The comments section exploded. I always wondered why they only promoted one daughter. Check their tax filings. Bet there's more. Nepotism at its finest. Disgusting. My phone became unbearable. 12 missed calls from Victoria, 8 from Richard, even 3 from Sophia. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I walked to the local coffee shop needing air and normalcy. The barista who knew my usual order gave me a sympathetic smile. Rough week? You could say that. I just sat down when Victoria burst through the door. Even in crisis, she looked immaculate designer suit, perfect makeup, every hair in place. But her eyes were wild. How dare you? She hissed, sliding into the seat across from me. Do you have any idea what you've done? Told the truth, I suggested calmly. You've destroyed everything we built. Donors are pulling out. The gala next month is cancelled. Sophia's firm, built with my inheritance, I interrupted. The house Grandma left me specifically. Or did you forget that part when you were forging my signature? She leaned back, composing herself. You were never going to manage those properties properly. We did what was best for the family legacy. You mean what was best for Sophia? She earned it, Victoria snapped. Yale Law, top of her class, building something meaningful. While you've been… what? Playing with donor spreadsheets? There it was. The truth beneath all their polite erasure. I wasn't accomplished enough, wasn't impressive enough, wasn't enough, period. I'm done, I said quietly. Done trying to earn a place at your table. Done being grateful for scraps. Done being your ghost. You'll regret this, she said, standing. We'll sue you for defamation. Destroy your career. You'll have nothing. I already have nothing, I replied. You made sure of that. The only difference is now everyone knows why. She left without another word, the door chimes marking her exit. That evening, Christine called. The story's gone viral. 3 major donors have already announced they're pulling funding from the Chen Foundation, and someone leaked audio from a board meeting. I smiled grimly. I knew exactly which recording she meant. Your mother's voice saying she only uses Sophia's face in marketing. It's spreading like wildfire. The internet has thoughts. I could imagine. The internet always had thoughts. There's more, Christine continued. Amanda Park, the notary who authenticated those signatures, she's under investigation by the state bar. Turns out this isn't her first ethical violation. Something loosened in my chest. It wasn't revenge, it was vindication. That night, I sat in my empty apartment boxes already packed for my move. I'd lost my job, my family, my inheritance. But for the first time in years, I felt free. The truth was out. Let them deal with the wildfire they'd started. By Saturday morning, the wildfire had become an inferno. I woke to 47 text messages, 23 missed calls, and a Twitter thread about the Chen family scandal that had over 10,000 retweets. Someone had found my parents' foundation website and archived it before they could scrub it clean. Every photo, every press release, every carefully curated family portrait that excluded me, all preserved and dissected by internet detectives who'd turned my erasure into a digital archaeology project. Spotted 2019 gala photo shows 3 Chen family members, but press release only mentions 2. Who's the ghost daughter? Foundation tax filings show Maya Chen listed as board member 2018 to 2020, then suddenly vanishes. What happened? Thread, Every time the Chens mentioned our daughter singular in public statements, the receipts are wild. I scrolled through it all from my apartment floor surrounded by moving boxes. Part of me wanted to look away, but a larger part needed to see. It needed to watch the narrative they'd controlled for so long slip through their manicured fingers. My phone rang. Patricia Chung. Maya, I've been contacted by 3 journalists since yesterday. Also, the State Attorney General's office wants to discuss the forged documents. This is moving fast. Is that good or bad? For your case? Very good. For your family, they're about to learn what real consequences look like. After we hung up, I made coffee and tried to process everything. I'd wanted justice, but I hadn't anticipated this avalanche of public scrutiny. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find my cousin James' Aunt May's son holding a box of donuts and looking concerned. Figured you might need these, he said, holding up the box. And maybe some company. I let him in, grateful for a friendly face. We sat among my boxes eating donuts and watching the scandal unfold on his phone. This comment, though, James said, showing me his screen. Someone found Sophia's firm website. Look at the About Us section. I read it aloud. Legacy Ventures was founded on the principle of family values and inherited wisdom, transforming generational wealth into modern innovation. Generational wealth, I repeated bitterly. My generation, my wealth. Mom's bringing the video tomorrow, James said quietly. Grandma's real will. She's been crying all morning, says she should have spoken up sooner. We all should have done things differently, I said. That afternoon, Victoria released a statement through their PR firm. I watched it live on my laptop, morbidly curious to see how they'd spin this. She stood at a podium in the foundation's conference room, Richard beside her, both in funeral black suits. No, Sophia, smart of her to stay hidden. The Chen Foundation has always operated with the highest integrity. Victoria began, her voice steady despite the chaos. Recent allegations by a disgruntled former family member are being investigated, but we remain confident in our practices and committed to our donors. Disgruntled former family member. Not daughter. Not even my name. We're conducting an internal review and will cooperate fully with any investigations. The Foundation's work will continue because our mission is bigger than personal disputes. Richard stepped forward. Our family has faced challenges, but we won't be distracted by those who choose destruction over dialogue. The comments on the live stream were brutal, not even calling her your daughter cold. Destruction over dialogue. You literally disowned her at graduation. Check the timestamps. Property was transferred before any dispute. Then came the moment that changed everything. A reporter shouted a question. What about the recording where you said Maya doesn't photograph well with your vision? Victoria's composure cracked for just a second, a flash of panic before her PR mask slammed back down. That's taken out of context. What context makes that acceptable? Another reporter called. Richard grabbed Victoria's arm, steering her away from the podium. The live stream cut abruptly. Within minutes, Hatcher's What Context was trending. That evening, I got an unexpected call. Sophia. Maya, she said, and I could hear tears in her voice. I didn't know. About the house, the forgeries, I swear I didn't know. You knew I was being erased, I said quietly. You sat there at graduation while Dad disowned me publicly. You took the money from my inheritance to start your firm. How can you claim ignorance? They told me you'd agreed to everything, that you wanted to step back from the family obligations. And you believed that. When have I ever stepped back from anything family-related? I was the one who stayed, who helped, who showed up even when I wasn't wanted. Silence stretched between us. I'm sorry, she finally whispered. I knew something was wrong, but it was easier to just accept the benefits. Yeah, I said. It always is. I hung up without saying goodbye. Some bridges weren't worth rebuilding even with apologies as lumber. That night, I turned off my phone and sat in the darkness of my half-packed apartment. Tomorrow, I'd watch Grandma's video. Tomorrow, I'd meet with the Attorney General's office. Tomorrow, I'd continue fighting. But tonight, I just sat with the strange, hollow victory of being seen after years of being erased. The internet had given me what my family never could acknowledgement that I existed, that I mattered, that my erasure was wrong. It wasn't love, but it was something. The courthouse in New Haven felt smaller than I'd expected. No grand columns or marble halls, just worn linoleum, buzzing fluorescent lights, and the faint smell of old coffee. But for me, this ordinary building might as well have been a coliseum. Patricia Chung adjusted her briefcase beside me as we waited outside courtroom 3B. "Remember," she said quietly, "this is just the preliminary hearing. Stay calm, let me handle the objections, and speak only when the judge addresses you directly." I nodded, smoothing my charcoal gray dress, the most expensive thing I owned, bought specifically for today. If they wanted to erase me, I'd make sure I was impossible to ignore. The door opened. Time to face them. Inside, my family sat at the defendant's table like they were posing for a portrait. Victoria in pearls and a black suit, Richard in his Yale tie, Sophia in muted blue trying to look innocent. Their legal team, 3 attorneys from one of Connecticut's most prestigious firms, flanked them like expensive armor. I took my seat, avoiding their eyes. The last time we'd all been in the same room was that graduation ceremony. How fitting that our finale would be in another formal setting. Judge Patricia Hemlock called the hearing to order. A woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for theatrics, exactly what I needed. Patricia stood. "Your Honor, we're presenting evidence of systematic fraud, forgery, and breach of fiduciary duty regarding the estate of Elise Chen and subsequent property transfers." The lead defense attorney, a man who looked like he'd been born in a suit, immediately objected. "Your Honor, these are family matters that should be handled in civil mediation, not. I'll decide what should be handled where, Counselor." Judge Hemlock cut him off. "Continue, Ms. Chung." What followed was a methodical destruction of my family's carefully constructed lies. Exhibit A, the forged signatures, blown up on a screen for everyone to see. A handwriting expert testified that the signatures were demonstrably fraudulent. Exhibit B, bank records showing the systematic draining of trust accounts meant for my benefit. Exhibit C, property transfer documents for the Gloucester House, the Cape Cod Cottage, and 2 investment properties, all bearing my forged signature, all notarized by Amanda Park. But the moment that changed everything came with Exhibit D. "Your Honor," Patricia said, "we'd like to present a video recording made by Elise Chen before her death." Victoria's head snapped up. Richard went pale. They hadn't known about this. The court technician dimmed the lights, and suddenly, my grandmother's face filled the screen. She looked tired but determined, sitting in her study, the same room where she'd taught me to play chess. "This is Elise Chen." Her recorded voice began. "And I'm making this video on March 15, 2019 to clarify my intentions regarding my estate." I hadn't watched it yet. Aunt May had given it directly to Patricia. My throat tightened as Grandma continued. "I want to be explicitly clear, the Gloucester Beach House is to go to my granddaughter Maya Chen, not to the family trust, not to be managed by anyone else. Maya is the only one who truly loved that house, who helped me maintain it, who understood what it meant to me." Victoria shifted in her seat. Sophia stared at her hands. "I've already seen attempts to minimize Maya's role in this family." Grandma continued, her voice gaining strength. "But I won't allow it. She may not have the degrees or the public achievements her sister does, but she has something rarer: integrity and loyalty without expectation of reward. Furthermore, I've set aside specific funds in trust for Maya's future equal to what I've designated for Sophia. Any attempt to alter these distributions would be against my express wishes and, frankly, would break my heart." The video ended with Grandma looking directly at the camera. Maya, if you're watching this, know that you were never invisible to me. You were never less than. You were always enough. I couldn't stop the tears then. They came silent and steady, and I didn't bother wiping them away. Your Honor, Patricia said softly, the defendants not only violated Elise Chen's wishes, they committed fraud to do so. They stole from their own daughter while publicly disowning her. The defense attorney scrambled. That video could be coerced, could be. It's been authenticated, Judge Hemlock said firmly. And it aligns with the original will filed in 2019 before these fraudulent transfers occurred. Richard suddenly stood. Your Honor, if I may. Sit down, Mr. Chen, the judge ordered. You'll have your chance to speak. But he didn't sit. Instead, he turned to me. Maya, please. We can work this out as a family. There's no need for a family, I said, forgetting Patricia's advice about staying quiet. You announced at Sophia's graduation that I was no longer your daughter. You had me fired from my job. You stole my inheritance while telling people I was unstable. Which part of that was family? You don't understand the pressure we were under, Victoria interjected. The foundation needed capital. Sophia's firm needed backing. So you stole from me to fund it. We invested in the family's future. In Sophia's future, I corrected. I was just the bank account you could forge. Judge Hemlock banged her gavel. Enough. I've heard sufficient evidence to rule on the emergency injunction. All property transfers involving Maya Chen's inheritance are hereby frozen pending full investigation. The defendants are ordered to provide complete financial records for forensic accounting. She turned to look directly at my parents. And I'm referring this case to the district attorney for criminal fraud charges. Victoria gasped. Richard sank into his chair. Sophia finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. Additionally, the judge continued, Amanda Park's notary actions in this case have been reported to the state licensing board. As we stood to leave, Victoria approached me. For once, her perfect composure was shattered. Maya, please, she whispered. I'm your mother. No, I said quietly. You were my mother. But mothers don't erase their children. I walked out of the courtroom with Patricia leaving them behind. In the hallway, James and Aunt May were waiting with relieved smiles. Grandma would be proud, Aunt May said, hugging me tight. I thought of that video of my grandmother's words, "You were always enough." For the first time in my life, I believed it. 8 months later, I stood barefoot on hardwood floors that had once been covered in decades of dust and neglect. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating the transformation of what used to be an abandoned Victorian in Hartford's Promise District. Maya, where do you want the reading nook cushions? Called Destiny, one of our first residents. At 19, she'd aged out of foster care with nowhere to go until now. By the bay window, I called back. Make it cozy. That's going to be our quiet space. The Second Chances house had been my dream, funded by the settlement from the fraud case and the recovered inheritance. A transitional home for young women aging out of foster care, offering not just shelter, but community job training and hope. The criminal case against my parents had ended with Richard pleading guilty to fraud and receiving 2 years probation and hefty fines. Victoria had managed to avoid criminal charges but faced civil penalties that decimated their foundation. It had dissolved 6 months ago, their reputation in ruins. Sophia's firm had survived barely after she repaid the stolen funds and publicly apologized. She'd sent me a letter last month, a real apology this time, acknowledging her complicity and privilege. I hadn't responded yet. Maybe someday, but not now. The journalist is here. Marcus, our program coordinator, announced from the doorway. I smoothed my paint-stained jeans and went to greet her. Christine Walsh. The same reporter who'd broken the original story had requested a follow-up piece. Maya. She smiled warmly. The place looks incredible. I gave her the tour, showing off the 6 bedrooms, the communal kitchen, where residents took turns cooking, the study room with donated computers, the art therapy space in what used to be an attic. Why this? Christine asked as we settled in the living room. You could have done anything with the settlement money. I thought about it, watching Destiny and 2 other residents laughing over a board game in the corner. I know what it feels like to be erased, I said finally. To be told you don't fit the image, that you're not enough. These young women are aging out of a system that's supposed to protect them, entering a world that often doesn't see them. I wanted to create a place where they're not just seen, but celebrated. And the name, Second Chances House. Because everyone deserves one, or 2, or however many it takes. Christine smiled, scribbling notes. I heard you've partnered with some major corporations for the job training programs. 3 so far, with more interested. Turns out, when you're not trying to maintain a false image, people are more willing to support genuine work. We talked for another hour about the programs, the residents, the future plans. As Christine packed up to leave, she paused at the door. You know what struck me most about your story, she said. You could have become bitter, vengeful. Instead, you built something beautiful from the ashes. After she left, I walked through the house, checking on residents, reviewing tomorrow's schedule. In the kitchen, I found the mail and sorted through it absently. Between bills and donation letters was a familiar ivory envelope. My hands stilled. Victoria's handwriting. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won. Inside was a single paragraph. I see your work in the news. Your grandmother would be proud. I was wrong about so many things, but mostly about what constitutes real achievement. The daughter I erased has done more for this community than the foundation ever did. I'm sorry. That's inadequate. But it's true. Victoria. I stood there for a long moment, letter in hand. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. Not thrown away, but not displayed either. Just acknowledged and filed away like a closed chapter. Maya. Destiny called from upstairs. Can you help with the curtains? Coming, I called back. As I climbed the stairs, I passed the dedication plaque we'd installed last week. It read, "In memory of Elise Chen, who saw people for who they truly were. In honor of every person who's been told they're not enough. You are. You always were." 6 young women now called this place home. By next year, we'd expand to the house next door, doubling our capacity. Local schools had started referring students. Former residents were coming back as mentors. The family that had erased me was gone. Their legacy crumbled. But in its place, I'd built a different kind of family, one based on choice. Not blood, on acceptance, not image. That night, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose, my phone buzzed with a text from James. "Proud of you, cuz. Grandma's definitely smiling." I smiled too, thinking of that video of her words that had changed everything. I'd been enough all along, I just needed to believe it. A burst of laughter came from inside as the residents prepared dinner together. Through the window, I could see them dancing to music while chopping vegetables, turning meal prep into celebration. This was my family now. Chosen, cherished, and absolutely real. The ghosts of my past had been exorcised. In their place stood something solid, something true, something that couldn't be erased by anyone's narrow vision of perfection. I was no longer the missing Chen daughter. I was Maya, founder of Second Chances House, survivor of erasure, builder of new beginnings. And that was more than enough. Sometimes the family that raises you isn't the family that truly sees you. But when you find the courage to stand in your truth, you discover that being erased from someone else's story just means you're free to write your own. Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own truth? When did you realize that their vision of you wasn't who you really were? Share your story in the comments. I read every one, and you never know who might need to hear it. And if you found strength in this story, don't forget to subscribe. Because here, every voice matters, every story counts, and no one gets erased.